Okay, imagine this. What if one of Europe's biggest, most historic football clubs just suddenly stepped up to a microphone and announced that, starting today, they're only signing players from one tiny, specific region of their own country? No more Brazilian wonder kids, zero Argentine superstars, no more drawn-out million-dollar transfer battles, and absolutely no global scouting network scouring the planet. I mean, it sounds completely impossible, right? But there is actually one top-tier European club that operates exactly like this, just flat-out refusing to play the modern game. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that absolutely defies the logic of modern sports.
And that brings us to this massive mystery. How on earth does a team survive in Europe's elite using only players from one tiny region? Because let's be real, if you look at the landscape of football today, actively avoiding global talent sounds like a guaranteed recipe for immediate disaster. We're talking about going toe-to-toe with super clubs that have literally endless resources. Yet this club has been doing exactly this for over a century, and somehow they haven't just survived, they've thrived.
To really appreciate this, we need to quickly paint a picture of the dizzying, hyper-commercialized world of modern football. You know the drill. We are totally used to billion-dollar transfer windows. We're used to armies of scouts turning over rocks in every single country on Earth just to find that next generational talent. In our current reality, success is almost always directly correlated with how far and wide a club can stretch its financial muscle across the globe.
But when we set up this stark contrast, modern football on one side and Athletic Bilbao on the other, the difference is just staggering. While the rest of the sport has gone entirely global, expanding their reach across continents, Athletic has stayed fiercely, stubbornly loyal to a hyper-local philosophy. And they've maintained this exact approach for over 100 years. Experts literally thought this philosophy would have to disappear as the game got faster and richer, but somehow, it hasn't.
Section 1. Football's greatest anomaly.
So, to understand this anomaly, we've got to go all the way back to a ridiculously bold decision made over a century ago. The club was founded in 1898 in the rapidly growing industrial city of Bilbao, and originally they fielded a mix of British workers and local Basque students. But in 1911, amidst some criticism over clubs using foreign players, Athletic made a historic pivot. They just stopped using foreigners entirely. Over time, that decision evolved into a formalized rule we now call the athletic philosophy. Basically, a player can represent the club if he was born in the Basque Country, grew up there, or received his football education in the region. Now, we absolutely need to bust a major myth right here. A lot of people out there think this is about race or bloodlines or having a specific Basque surname. None of that is true. The philosophy is completely based on football development and cultural ties, not ethnicity.
And honestly, there's absolutely no better proof of this than Iñaki and Nico Williams. Their parents fled Ghana looking for a better life. Iñaki was born in Bilbao, grew up in the Basque Country, joined the academy, and became one of the club's absolute greatest modern legends. And his younger brother Nico followed the exact same path. They've both proudly worn the athletic shirt, and they perfectly represent what the club actually believes in. Again, it's not about bloodlines, it's not about race, it is entirely about belonging.
But you really have to understand the sheer scale of the disadvantage this creates. 3 million people. To put that into perspective, that's a smaller population than the city limits of Los Angeles or Berlin. By voluntarily restricting themselves to this unique region, which, by the way, has its own distinct culture and its own ancient language, Euskara, Athletic limits itself to one of the smallest talent pools in all of elite football. They are going up against clubs that recruit from a global pool of literally billions of people. It artificially raises the stakes to an almost unimaginable degree.
Section 2. Inside the Lizama Academy.
So the obvious question, how do you actually find talent? Well, if you can't buy superstars, you have to build them. And it all starts here at Lizama, the beating heart of the football club. Instead of dropping 100 million euros on a flashy transfer, they invest in a relentless, step-by-step process. Step 1, they scout local kids as young as 8 or 9 years old. Step 2, they bring them into Lizama for a comprehensive education. And we're not just talking about passing and shooting, but really learning what it means to represent this club. Step 3, they ensure every single age group plays with the exact same tactical principles. So by the time these kids reach Step 4, the first team, they have a massive advantage. They already know the tactical system inside out, whereas other clubs are often sitting around waiting years for expensive new signings to adapt.
But Lizama alone isn't quite enough. They artificially expand their reach by operating what is easily one of Europe's most detailed regional scouting systems. Scouts are at youth matches every single weekend. They monitor school tournaments, amateur leagues, and they maintain incredibly close ties with smaller Basque clubs. Because the region is so small,
These scouts personally know nearly every promising kid in the area. Honestly, they probably even know what these kids had for breakfast. This hyper-local focus gives Athletic an edge over giant clubs that are just spread far too thin trying to scout entire continents.
And the result? It's literally a conveyor belt of top-tier talent. You've got icons like Julian Guerrero and Fernando Llorente, modern stars like Aymeric Laporte and Kepa Arrizabalaga, right alongside lifelong heroes like Iker Muniain. These are absolute top-tier players, many of them becoming Spanish internationals. And here is the truly impressive part. Even when some of these stars eventually leave for huge transfer fees, Athletic doesn't panic. They don't sweat it. They simply go right back to Lizama and start developing the next generation.
Section 3. Trophies and Survival.
Now, you might be thinking a club operating with one hand tied behind its back would just be happy to participate. But no, Athletic is built on winning. Just take a look at this extraordinary trophy cabinet. 8 La Liga titles. Only Real Madrid and Barcelona have won significantly more league titles in Spain. And when it comes to the domestic cup, despite spending a fraction of the money of their rivals, they have lifted the Copa del Rey an astonishing 24 times. They aren't just surviving. Historically, they are straight up one of the most successful clubs in the country.
And this philosophy isn't just a gimmick of one good generation either. It's a sustained winning strategy across multiple eras. They completely dominated Spanish football in the 1930s. Then jumped to the early 1980s under Javier Clemente. They enjoyed another historic period, winning back-to-back La Ligas and completing a domestic double. And beautifully, after decades of heartbreak in cup finals and entire generations of waiting, they just lifted the Copa del Rey again in 2024.
But out of all these trophies, one number stands head and shoulders above the rest. 0. 0 relegation since La Liga was founded in 1929. Every single other club in Spain, outside of 2, has experienced the sheer devastation of dropping down a division at least once. Athletic never has. They join only Real Madrid and Barcelona in that elite, untouchable club of 3. Just think about how incredible that is, with a talent pool of just 3 million people.
There's a massive takeaway here for any organization, whether you're in or out of sports. Because they cannot rely on quick, expensive fixes in the transfer market, they just don't panic. After a bad year, they literally cannot rebuild their squad by buying 10 new players, so they don't even try. Instead, they rely on absolute trust in their academy, their coaches, and their core identity. And by not blowing hundreds of millions on massive transfer fees, they maintain long-term financial stability. Basically, they survive through absolute trust in who they are, completely ignoring the temptation of quick fixes.
Section 4. Identity in Modern Football.
Let's look at what Athletic Bilbao represents in a sport that is becoming increasingly detached from its origins. We do have to objectively acknowledge the immense existential risk they run every single season. The cost of this philosophy is incredibly heavy. I mean, if they desperately need a striker to score goals, they cannot just spend 80 million euros to fix the problem. If a world-class midfielder wants to join them but isn't Basque, they simply cannot sign him. This puts constant, relentless pressure on their academy production. If one generation of kids isn't quite strong enough, there's no global market to swoop in and rescue the club. That makes flawless player development absolutely essential.
But here is the emotional connection that simply cannot be bought. In the Basque Country, football is deeply rooted in everyday culture. Children grow up dreaming of one thing: playing for Athletic. Families and communities invest in youth football because they know exactly what the end goal is. As the sources highlight, success for them isn't measured by producing generic professional players to sell off to the rest of Europe. Success is producing players for Athletic. Every single supporter in that stadium knows the players on the pitch grew up just kilometers away. They share a history of surviving wars, political changes, and a century of football evolution, all together.
Modern football is faster, richer, and far more global than ever before. Owners come from all over the world. Players change clubs every single season, and fans sometimes barely even recognize their own teams anymore. Yet, Athletic stands firm. So it leaves us with this thought. In a sport where absolutely everything has a price tag, exactly how much is identity worth? Tradition, loyalty, and a deep, deep sense of belonging have sustained this incredible club for over 125 years, proving that some things simply cannot be bought. Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer, and we'll see you next time.